again, I'm Craig Andrus. Thanks for watching the show. Call the mayor, Wichita, 316-491-5787. You can call and ask any question you like. Today we have a special guest with us, James Clendenin. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Now, you live down south. What's your district?
District is District 3. The boundaries are roughly from Kellogg to 73rd South, which kind of wedges in between Hayesville and Derby.
Yes.
And then Seneca to one side and Woodlawn to the other.
Now, that is your district. You've been pretty active doing a lot of things lately. It's been a busy time.
Oh boy, it has been a busy time. I have lots of irons in the fire. I'm preparing for life after politics. We are 2 years away from being term limited, and so
yes.
Yeah.
Well, I know there's some exciting things going on with the city. If you want to ask about it, 316-491-5787 is your number. You can ask about issues in this district or anything that you'd like. We have an election coming up, so we have the mayor obviously taking a break from the show due to equal time. We wanted to make sure that we didn't go over the limit on equal time. But James, tell me what's going on with the city right now. Just give me a couple of highlights that the city's working on right now.
Oh my gosh. The two biggest things obviously are water. That's been the biggest thing, is people talking about water and being concerned about it, which is great. It's given us a lot of time to be able to talk to people and really address concerns and get people educated on the water. Also, the baseball stadium that's being built right now, huge quality of life amenity. We're working on all sorts of things, which include some improvements on Douglas to quality of life initiatives all over the city.
We will get to some of that in just a moment, but first I'd like to show a video a little bit about the water. So we're going to come to a video talking a little more about water, because I know
Sure.
that the committee met, so let's take a look at that, and then we can talk about that in a moment.
Burns McDonnell and Alberici did your aquifer storage project, so it was one of 4 projects globally to be recognized for the innovation that the city put forth. Fort Smith, Arkansas's water supply, Burns McDonnell's done both the supply and the treatment plant and is now doing the conveyance lines. The Florence Water Treatment Plant in Omaha, which is Omaha's largest plant, that HDR has done numerous projects, and then Alberici's work up at Fargo. This is the new water supply into the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. HDR's work at Alexander Ora, that's the largest water treatment plant in the United States. It's in Miami. Burns and Mac work out in the Rocky Mountain region. These are advanced membrane water treatment plants that are really state-of-the-art. And then Alberici's work in Toronto, Canada. So we have both local, regional, and national experience to draw from. In fact, if you look at our large plant experience and our large water pipeline experience, we have almost 40 projects that we can draw from that experience to make sure that we're delivering the right project for you.
Okay, now that video comes to us from the city of Wichita. There have been some media questions asking about Burns and McDonnell. Do they have the qualifications to do this? Yeah. I know the city has spent a lot of time looking into this and doing some vetting on this. This is going to be one of the larger projects Wichita, if not the largest dollar amount that Wichita's ever done. Yeah. Adjusted for inflation, perhaps not. But tell me a little bit more about the thought and the processes that have gone into looking at this and where the checks and balances still are. I know we've still got the oversight committee that continues to meet. I'll get back to that in a second, but your thoughts?
Well, the interesting thing about the process is when we go through an RFP process to pick something, we do get a recommendation from a committee that is doing that oversight. But it is incumbent upon the city council to really make sure we're looking at policy-wise if that recommendation meets what our policy is going to be. And the biggest thing that we wanted to do is make sure we can get a quality water treatment plant and make sure that we're able to keep rate increases as low as possible for ratepayers. And so when we looked at that whole kind of scenario, it's our job to kind of look at that and go, you know what, we feel like maybe we weren't getting exactly that with the first team, and so we decided as a body that we weren't going to go in the direction of the recommendation from the committee. That being said, we really moved forward in a way that was intentionally trying to keep rates low for our ratepayers. Eventually, the Wichita Water Partners were picked through a whole process, and ultimately it worked. Ultimately the process worked and allowed us to get to where we needed to be for ratepayers and citizens.
316-491-5787 is the number. I do want to ask you one of the tough questions here, and that is WIFIA, financing.
Yeah.
You've mentioned ratepayers trying to keep it low. I know that over time, ratepayers will pay for it. It's not going to be front-loaded because city staff has done much homework on this.
Yes.
But talk to me about WIFIA, that financing. That's going to finance roughly half of the cost of this project.
It is.
I understand there was a failed WIFIA application at one point.
Yes.
And we're getting close to that deadline. Where do we stand on that right now?
Well, originally we had the Jacobs team who submitted the first WIFIA application. It wasn't successful, and so we had to go back out and find a team that would put in another application for us. Wichita Water Partners, actually I think the Burns and McDonald team was able to get us a successful application. And so that's important because that WIFIA, federal WIFIA loan helps us defer payments. It's also very low interest. And so we won't have to pay payments during the construction of the project, and we'll be able to start recouping and making it so ratepayers don't have to pay those higher percentages into the future.
I'm sure we'll get back to that in a moment. 316-491-5787 is the number. But we do have a caller. Let's get right to it. Sharice, you are on the show. Call the Mayor of Wichita. Sharice, what is your question?
Hi, yeah, thanks so much for giving me this opportunity. I wanted to ask basically why we're planning on moving a successful library, Linwood Library, over to the Clapp Golf Course area in the Wichita Mall. We have a wonderful community library that is one of the busiest libraries in Wichita, and here we go, we're moving again. And so I don't know if we're trying to rob Peter to pay Paul or what, but I do want him to answer that question for me.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to answer that question. It's great. So thank you for the question. We want to be able to expand library services right now in the Linwood library in the senior center there. It's very small. It's kind of tucked away and hidden. Now, we don't want to take that room away. As a matter of fact, talking with the library, they want to leave a reading room there, and we'll put materials and those sorts of things in that reading room so the seniors that are there are able to be able to be there and be comfortable and read and that sort of thing. At the Wichita Mall, we have the opportunity to really expand our footprint and our ability to reach children, to reach some more of the disadvantaged areas right across the street in Hilltop. We have the ability to provide more Wi-Fi service. It's really interesting. The Burger King that's over there by where the current library, the new library site would be, is kind of like the Wi-Fi hangout for the neighborhood because there's a lot of people that have devices but aren't able to use them without Wi-Fi. And so being able to have people come to the library and maybe have opportunities to learn, by using the Wi-Fi and the computers there. Also, we're working on projects with Jardine Middle School and Colvin Elementary in Plainview, which is much closer to the new location. That will bring children into the library and allow them to learn and do projects and present projects even to the public through some of the STEM magnet education that they're getting at Jardine. And so it's creating a lot of partnerships for the city of Wichita to really get our reach out further. But at the same time, we realize that so many people use the library over there at the Linwood site. And so we're going to make sure that we can lead reading materials and have a place for the seniors who use the senior center to still relax and enjoy the environment there.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I hope, Patrice, that answered your question.
Yeah.
316-491-5787. You can ask anything you want. We have another caller. Larry, you are on the show. You have a question about transparency. What is your question, Larry?
My question is, do you think anyone running for a paid political office should be required to furnish 5 years of past tax returns and a certified copy of their net worth? That's my question.
Thank you, Larry. That's a very specific question.
Well, that is interesting. I don't know that that's necessary, especially someone's net worth. I know that there are so many people that in the Wichita area that may not be worth millions, but are extremely good decision makers for their families. They're extremely good community members. They're members that I know in the community that don't make a lot of money, that actually donate a tremendous amount of their time expecting nothing in return. Very, very smart, capable people. And so I don't see that someone's net worth really is something that should qualify someone to run for office.
I think getting more specifically to his question, in addition to that, I'll have a follow-up for you.
Sure.
Do you think that if somebody does provide their net worth, do you think that should be part of the conversation about getting them into office? Do you think those questions should be fair game?
Yeah, I think that when you start taking someone's income and using it for or against them, it really becomes kind of a discriminatory environment. And we want to make sure that we're getting qualified people in there, people that can think, people that are connected to the community, people that can make decisions because they're in the community, listening to the community. I have 15 neighborhood associations. And I go to all those neighborhood associations.
I know that each of you spend a tremendous lot of time after hours going to these meetings.
Absolutely.
The same with Cindy Claycomb. So when you go to these meetings, again, that's not paid time. That's just part of the job.
That's just part of the job. I get a salary, but when we go to these community meetings, we're there to listen. We're there to connect with the public, and we're really there to listen and take those concerns back to City Hall. We're there to listen and know where the citizens want us to go as far as policies go and what means most to citizens. And I think someone's net worth doesn't necessarily qualify them to do that. And so we need to make sure that when we're looking at candidates, we need to look at candidates that are good decision makers in our community, are already good leaders in our community, and those that are listening to the public and communicating with the public effectively.
I know that people reach out to you quite often. Every time I try to call you, you've usually got yourself on another line. So
I am constantly on the phone. If people try to get a hold of me, sometimes I tell them, listen, text. Send me a text, the best way to get a hold of me, because we have constant emails coming in, constant phone calls, constant texts. And I tell people, you know what, if you have my number, blow it up if it's really important, because it may take me 24 hours to get back with you, but we really try hard to do that. I have an amazing neighborhood assistant who helps me field some of those questions and calls. She's full-time. I think a lot of people don't realize that the Wichita City Council position is a part-time position. We have to have other jobs to make ends meet, and so we are there not full-time. There have been discussions in the past by community members trying to make us full-time, but that has been something that I think that would be difficult to do. But
all right, thank you very much for that answer. You answered it quite well, I believe. 316-491-5787. Mark, you are on the show. You've got a question. Welcome to Call the Mayor. Mark?
Hi, thanks for letting me be a part of your discussion.
Happy to.
My question concerns the indigents, particularly in the downtown area. It's my understanding that Kansas now has 50,000 jobs in the surplus. And with taking that into regard, is there anything in the council's plans for the future to accommodate those people downtown that are currently homeless?
I will jump off here and say that I do know the City Council just approved a build-out for homeless veterans now. The homeless veterans group that's doing this is called Passageways. I've talked to them. I've asked them some questions. They are a nonprofit. They're not a for-profit organization. But tell me a little bit about that. What's that all about? And it is for homeless veterans, but specifically they're trying to expand.
Sure. So Passageways is an amazing group. They are really dedicated to making sure that homeless vets, to begin with, are able to get reintegrated into society with a job, housing and being back on their feet, and really providing some dignity for those who have given so much to our community. So Passageways is an amazing organization helping homeless veterans, but we have the homeless outreach team as well through the Wichita Police Department. The homeless outreach team, what they do is they go out and make contact, their first contact, especially when the police are called with homeless. They assess the situation and they're really looking for ways that they can help the homeless. Now, the biggest barrier sometimes for people getting jobs that are homeless downtown or anywhere really is mental health. Mental health for homeless individuals is important. If you can't afford to go see a therapist or get the meds that you need, then you end up finding yourself in a situation where you maybe can't be employed and you end up on the street. So we really need to look at how we can provide mental health awareness and provide those sorts of things. The HOT team does a really good job at making sure that we identify.
Okay, thank you all. 316-491-5787. We've got another caller on the line. Fred, you have a question about Douglas. Welcome to the show, Fred.
Yes. My question is that do you think it's a good idea to have restrict the traffic on Douglas from from 2 lanes in each direction down to 1 lane in each direction? And I think it's a very bad idea.
Well, I appreciate the call. Oh, you had a follow-up?
And I believe we're getting too much on the bike path. I mean, down Douglas Street, why do we need to have a special bike path down the middle of Douglas Street on both sides of the street? Really?
Okay. Thank you. I'll let you answer that. I do know there's a proposal out there to explain. It would be essentially from Main Street on Douglas, essentially from Main Street following through to kind of Union Station over there, where 2 lanes in each direction would be turned down to 1 lane in each direction. The middle would be a turn lane, and on the outside of that, the proposal is, it's not an official proposal yet, but it's being studied, where you'd have bike path and scooter path. And again, we see scooters out there, but there are no lanes for them. That's one part, but I'll let you answer the question.
Yeah, so I'm really kind of in the phase of this where I'm trying to gather information from citizens. And so that's one of the things that you may have seen in the media recently, is that we're receiving a grant to allow us to temporarily make changes to see how the public reacts and how they do or don't like the changes. And then it would be able to be changed back, but we feel like it's the best way for us to get feedback, for people to actually experience what the change would possibly look like. I think we're still in that process of getting feedback from the public. You know, there are so many different viewpoints on this, and I've heard them all over the place. I've heard people want to do things that are kind of in between what some of those proposals are. And so knowing that we can't make everybody happy in this situation, we decided that it would be a great idea for us to at least temporarily do make these changes so people can get a feel for it, and then we can really get some honest feedback based on some factual information about whether or not this is really going to work for the city of Wichita or not.
You know, I dug into that myself and asked a few questions. Douglas is supposed to handle up to 20,000 cars. It's about 16,000 right now, so reducing the lanes. Also, I should add, you didn't mention, this is a pilot program.
It is.
And they wouldn't rip up sidewalks or anything. This would involve paint and lanes for now. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it is a pilot project, and we are going to try to do everything we can to make sure that we're getting feedback from people. You know, the City of Wichita's website and Facebook site are a great way to do that, to send feedback. We'll have avenues for people to get with us, but we want to make sure that it is just a pilot project, and really it's the best way to get some really great factual information about how it's affecting people.
And I know the last time the council took a look at that, it was tabled, take another look at it in November?
Yep,
is it?
November is when we're going to take a look at the temporary pilot project and the changes, and see where we go from there.
We'll get to more calls in just a second, 316-491-5787. But a quick question.
Yeah.
When I was asking around, I talked to some businesses downtown. One business owner said, we've already got scooters on the sidewalk now. We'd love to see them on the street because they're supposed to be on the street.
Yeah.
But that business owner also asked me, he said, it's too busy through there now. How do you answer that question?
Yeah, so I don't know the stats on how busy Douglas is. That's, again, part of this process of learning how the pilot project would affect traffic. I do know this, that Douglas has become busier and busier every year as we've infused more private money and more money from public money into streets and that sort of thing downtown. The businesses are popping up everywhere now. People are enjoying downtown. It's actually an amazing thing to see on the nighttime. You're seeing cars all over the place. I haven't seen that many cars downtown since people used to drag Douglas, honestly.
Drag Douglas.
Drag Douglas. Oh, it's a throwback. And so,
wow. Okay.
Whether or not this is going to affect negatively or not, it's hard to say yet. Slowing people down, allowing them to stroll, creating more walkable and rideable environment, adding trees, adding more landscaping, allowing people to walk by businesses. A lot of cities are doing this and they're having a lot of success. And so we're not every other city, though. We're Wichita. And so we really feel like this pilot project would allow citizens to see firsthand how it will affect them. And then as we get feedback, we'll just have to make at that point a more permanent decision.
I will jump in and say this is Wichita. We do like our cars and our autonomy when it comes to
our
that.
cars.
So,
Yep.
another 316-491-5787. You can ask James any question you want, even about baseball. I know we got some video of that. We can talk to that in a second. But we have a Facebook question. For those of you joining us on Facebook, thank you so much for joining us. And of course, you can look at the show on YouTube afterwards. And
absolutely.
This is that time of year when everybody's asking questions. What comes next with baseball? But we'll get to that in a second. The Facebook question we have here: who is more important? The mayor or the city manager? Now, for those of you who don't know the city manager's role, because the mayor is one of those roles that's very public and it's very out there, because the mayor's, on call the mayor normally.
Yeah.
But also city council, pretty high profile. But the city manager just does so much, in charge of so many different things.
Yeah.
I know what my answer would be, but what are your thoughts on that question?
Well, it's interesting. Our form of government at the city of Wichita really is set up with a lot of checks and balances. It is set up in a way that staff at city can't run everything, and it's set up in a way that the city council cannot politicize and run everything on the operations side. So there's some separations there that really help it all work well together. Just a little quick background. The city manager is tasked with running the day-to-day operations of the city. He has 7 bosses. That's the Wichita City Council. That's an extremely difficult position to be in. I don't envy him, especially when he's in my office with our weekly meeting, and I'm just like, hey, why did this happen? What's going on? And I have all the issues I'm bringing to him. And then he has 7 other council members that he has to answer to as well. Or I'm sorry, I take that back. 5 other council members and the mayor. But the city council itself is only directed to affect policy. Okay, we are the policymakers. We are the connection with the public. We are the people that make the overarching decisions. And then the city manager is tasked with taking those decisions and making them operationally happen. And so I think one couldn't survive without the other. And I really think that we serve the citizens best when we have kind of these checks and balances in place to allow those decisions to be vetted that we make as we're trying to make them with staff that are experts in their field. We have amazing people that are serving at the city of Wichita, and then they take it to the politicians, and sometimes us as policymakers, we really want to try to change that direction, and that's our purview as elected officials based on the feedback we get from citizens. And so who's more important? Well, I think the citizens are more important in this whole scenario. I think getting feedback from citizens are more important. The city manager listens to the citizens. The city council is directly responsible to the citizens. And as long as what we're doing every day is reflecting what citizens want and their desires, I think that we're in a win-win.
Okay. long answer, but I appreciate it.
I'm-
No, that's fine.
You
That's
said I
fine.
have the gift of gab at one point.
Did I say that?
Yeah, you did. You did. That's
Okay,
nice of
maybe
you.
I did, which is fine. That's okay. I know you listen to a lot of people, so you've got a lot rattling around up there. Okay, so call the mayor of Wichita, 316-491-5787. That is the number to call. You can ask anything, and he may or may not give a long answer. It depends on how things go. We've got another caller, so let's jump right in. Bill, you are on the show. Bill, you have a question about Century 2. Welcome.
Yes. Would you consider saving Century 2 and publicly support that and your reasoning why? And as a side note, I hope that you run for mayor someday.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah, Bill, thank you for the question and a little piece of commentary there. You're not currently running for mayor, though.
I'm not currently running for mayor, and I'd like to stay
settle that out, but
away from that right now. But no, listen, I am one of those people who is a fan of Century 2. I believe that it is an amazing architectural piece. I believe it's part of our skyline, and I do agree, though, also with the recommendation of the committee that we need a new performing arts center. I believe that also, though, I think there are some ideas from some people that could make Century 2 a world-class performing arts center as well. I mean, that's something I think should be explored. But regardless of what we do with performing arts, I think Century 2 needs to be preserved. It's just my opinion. There are opinions all over the place on the council on this, but I think that something that's around 600 square feet like that would be so hard and expensive to build, and it's kind of an icon in our city. And so repurposing it for several different things that you could do. And we're getting all kinds of ideas. We still want to have ideas from people on what we could do to repurpose it, or if somebody could step forward and really come up with some good plans on how we could even use it as a performing arts center still, I'm all ears.
Okay, so if I could interject, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, please do.
Is that one of the questions that's hanging out there? I know the Save Century 2 group had a meeting this week again. There's talk about getting this on the National Registry, which could change a lot of things. I know they're in what they call Phase 2 now of getting it on the National Registry. If that happens, that of course changes a lot of things. But in that footprint, roughly that footprint with the Wichita, gathering ideas right now, and I know it's in the gathering ideas phase right now, but how would Century 2 fit into that footprint? Would there be a separate opera house? And I know there's talk, Wichita probably needs to get a new convention space in there, but how does that fit into the footprint here? And with the Save Century 2 group, your thoughts on that as well?
Well, I want to start by saying that the convention and tourism business in Wichita is a huge industry. It provides a lot of jobs. Actually, the whole convention, tourism, and arts community really adds over $1 billion, according to Visit Wichita, every year. Circulating into our economy. It brings a lot of outside dollars in. So Century 2, performing arts, and convention space is extremely important to our city and its citizens, and I hope the citizens understand that. We do need to expand and modernize our current space for conventions. It doesn't meet with the requirements that the conventions are looking for as far as contiguous space and meeting rooms, and so we do need to update that. That is something that needs to happen. Also, the performing arts, there's a large group of people that really want a modern performing arts center, one that has technology that would allow us to have some of the bigger traveling shows that come in here. Some shows won't come because loading and unloading from Century 2 is tough, and there's just all kinds of things that don't come here because of that. So, and then for me, Century 2 is important. Again, I think that all of it can fit well together. A new performing arts center, we learned, would take up about 40% of the footprint that the current Century 2 has, so only 40% of that footprint. And so it still could fit on a couple of different sites on that piece of ground, and Century 2 could still be saved and have a new performing arts center. So there's a lot of moving parts, there's a lot to consider in this, and so it's very, very important for the public to give us their feedback so we're doing exactly what the public wants us to do.
You have been very bold and very public about saying now that you want Century 2. You would like. 316-491-5787. If you want to,
A lot of people will disagree with me. A lot of people aren't going to like me after that.
threw that out there, so I think it's fair game. If you want to call and ask about it. I'm just saying.
Craig, I got to tell you, before you go on, I think it's extremely important for us to celebrate the past while looking forward to the future. I really do. I know it sounds corny. It's a very political thing to say, but we have to celebrate the past, but we also have to look forward to the future. And I think that there's a way for us to do that, both of those things with this plan coming forward.
Well, you did kind of lay it out there also about the part of the plan and needing a convention space and why that's important. So, okay. 316-491-5787. We have another caller. Casey, you have a question about scooters. Welcome to the show. What's your question?
Yeah, hi. This will seem delayed after all the Century 2 information, but I was kind of listening. I actually live in El Dorado, and it's just kind of interesting that I think more maybe even than you realize, you have a lot of community suburban areas that are really excitedly watching what's happening in Wichita. It's kind of our home away from home. But so we saw the scooters, and I just wanted to say the idea and the concept, we came down and used them once. The concept of getting around Douglas expediently into the different stores and having that access, because of course parking and getting in that area is still, I think, problematic for the most part. But I do understand both sides of that. But I wanted to say, as somebody experiencing it for the first time, I think both, I knew I wasn't supposed to be on the sidewalk, but the concept of getting yourself out in the traffic down there, you always felt like you were kind of just hanging on the edge, hoping for the best, which is an unsettling feeling. And it wasn't just us, but I'm saying I can see how that can be a problematic situation. And I do think hopefully over time they can kind of sort out how to make it the safest in terms of increasing flux of traffic down into that area. And maybe the scooters will work out, maybe not. But I've been hearing you talking, is the best way for consumers, whether they're Wichita or outlying areas, to follow the rules, the regulations, and what's happening with these certain things, to be on your Facebook page? Is that what?
Yeah, so we love taking feedback on our Facebook page. We like taking feedback. I think it's City of Wichita Government Facebook page. And if you have any comments at all, you can definitely send them there. And we have a wonderful team that tries to make sure that they answer every single one.
Okay, well, yeah, just outsider looking in, you have a lot of people interested in what's happening that aren't even living in Wichita. So keep up the good work, and we'll give the feedback on the appropriate avenue.
Yeah, Casey, I've got a quick question for you if you're still there.
Sure.
You're from outside Wichita. How often do you come downtown Wichita?
All of the time. All of the time. So really it's kind of funny, because our going statement in the household is, we go to Wichita so much we should live there, because we do a lot in Wichita, and it's offering more and more kind of exciting things to do for the public. For example, you guys have the boats and bikes. Now, the funny thing about that, we heard of it and went all over creation trying to figure out how to access it. But so sometimes I think people are hearing of different things, but in terms of what are the rules, how to access some of the new things, some of those things, people, I think it's just a communication piece, but it's maybe just needing to know where the right place to go is. But yeah, we go to Wichita a lot. I think you have a lot of that in your surrounding communities, really.
Well, thank you, Casey. Appreciate having you on the show.
Thanks.
Casey, thank you so much. And really the comment to that I would say is that Wichita depends on its outlying communities. We're kind of a regional area. Wichita doesn't survive on its own. We depend on you and everybody else, and it's really a symbiotic relationship. The small cities don't survive without Wichita. It's interesting. Wichita is the 48th largest city in the country, bigger than like Salt Lake City, for instance. Salt Lake City itself is not as big as Wichita, but all the smaller towns, all the suburbs, all the little cities around Salt Lake City make it a metro area of over 1 million. And so it's important that we all work together. We all are part of the same South Central Kansas family, really. And I encourage people to come to Wichita, but I also encourage people to go to some of the smaller towns. I think of the city of Sedgwick that's right on the northern side of Sedgwick County. They have an amazing restaurant there, a steakhouse called Si's Hoof and Horn. And
I love that place. I've been to
It's a
Si's.
he didn't give me any money for that.
Is this a promo for Si's?
This is not but there's even a little coffee shop there that is just amazing. And so we have these little towns that you can have little mini getaways in the evening to go to, and every single town has its own little quirky thing that it has. It's really neat.
Peabody, for example. You haven't mentioned Peabody.
I know that Peabody's close to your heart. I don't
thought I'd
make it
throw
that,
that out
I don't
there,
make it that far out, but Peabody is within our regional area.
A quaint 1880s Main Street with a wonderful theater that they're revamping. I'll stop. But
we all depend on each other. And so when we create quality of life for the citizens in Wichita, we're creating it for the whole region. And honestly, the whole region really provides quality of life for Wichita as well.
Thank you, James. 316-491-5787. A lot of calls tonight. We appreciate it, of course. We had Dave on the line. He was going to ask a question about trees on Main Street. Yeah. I do know that we've, on Main Street, on Douglas, I do know that we've been in kind of a planting mode because I've talked to the city about this and asked that question. Again, with the scooters, I wanted to get back to that question.
Sure.
Would we have to make any physical changes down the road? I know this is a pilot project, and it's only being proposed at this point. But what kind of changes would we need to make? I know there'd have to be some adjustments made to the lights and the timing of the lights on Douglas to make this scooter thing work. Do you have an answer for that?
Yeah, well, we're currently looking into technology, and actually I think we just approved some technology that actually will allow us to synchronize those lights better to make things safer, especially for scooters. But honestly, for me, in most cities you can't ride on the sidewalk with scooters. Most cities have bike lanes, though, many more bike lanes than the city of Wichita has, and scooters are allowed in the bike lanes. For me, I don't feel like I want to ride in the street either, Casey, just talking about you not wanting to or feeling uneasy. And so I personally choose not to ride on the scooters. But I think they're a great quality of life piece. And the biggest thing is for people just to follow the rules. Just follow the rules if you're going to ride them. And I think everybody will be happy with them. But every time I see somebody on a scooter, I see them smiling. And I think that that's an important thing. When people are enjoying our city and smiling and having a good time safely, I think that's what makes our city an amazing place.
Very good. Okay, next caller. Dave, if you're back, welcome to the show. What is your question?
Hey, thanks for taking my question. I want to talk about trees on Douglas. I know when I go to Delano, which, I don't go there often enough to be familiar with all those small storefront shops, and yet there's so many trees that they block the signage. So I don't think they're serving a good purpose, and I hope that we won't pursue any more trees on Douglas for the sake of those small businesses so that their signage is visible.
Dave, I think that's a good point. Honestly, I don't know what the plan is really for trees on Douglas yet. I think that's all going to be part of this process for taking feedback. Thank you for providing yours. We'll make sure that obviously we take that into consideration. People love trees, though. They really do. Maybe not some of the business owners whose signs are being blocked, but people love trees, and it makes kind of an enjoyable, walkable environment. So we'll definitely have to take that into consideration.
All right. I said we'd get to baseball. Here we go. We do have a new baseball stadium on the way.
We do.
If you have not heard. Kendall, you're on the show. Call the mayor. Welcome. What is your question?
Well, have they totally decided on what they're going to call the team, or is it still open for suggestions? I just think I've got a good one, a really good name for Wichita, and maybe a good idea, too.
Kendall, should I throw out my idea first, or do you want to go?
Sure, go for it.
Spirit of Wichita.
Oh, okay.
It could have wings and
yeah.
Okay. Kendall, what is your idea?
Well, I would call it. I like the idea of WW, right? I call it the Wichita Wheel. Okay. Now, why I say the wheel? So think of the the wing nuts, okay? As far as, it doesn't have to really mean anything per se, but the wheels, there are so many, usually they use it with a double entendre or kind of a pun, in the name. Well, I'll just give you a few, okay, for if it was the wheels, okay?
Sure.
The wheels are smoking today. Those wheels are hot today. He just popped a wheelie out in left field.
Oh, that's
Wheelie and the boys.
Yeah.
We are smoking with the wheels of fortune. Don't tread on me. The wheels are wagging, not dragging. Wheeling and dealing, running with the big wheels.
Kendall, you have given this a lot of thought. No, keep going. That's fine.
The big wheels keep on turning, right? Proud Mary rolling on the river, right?
Okay.
The wheels are on a roll, and then the word would be let's roll, okay? Let's roll. He's a big wheel on the team.
I like it.
We'll need to rotate him.
Okay, that's good.
That's good. That one was good.
He's playing flat today. He's a knockoff for sure. Just had a rollover, folks. Spin those wheels. We'll win this game for sure. Training wheels, and we'll kick their. But I mean, that's what I'm thinking. And not only that, but I think what you need downtown. You know how London has a big Ferris wheel. Well, we don't have to have anything that big. But if you had the right location somewhere between Maple and Douglas, because you don't want to stick it in some apartment's, balcony, but somewhere to where it could be seen from the stadium, looking east, and you wouldn't have, it could be lit up. You could have a light show with it and stuff like that, or you even have a little one for kids, kind of like Kittyland did years ago. They had 2 Ferris wheels. But if you had it just in the right location, it would, and then that would tie in with the wheels rolling on the river, and that song, big wheels keep on turning, Proud Mary keep on churning, rolling on the river, and of course
I think
we've got a
everybody
river.
knows that song. There's a meme about that out right now, and it has to do with wheels. Is that where you got that from?
No.
No? Okay.
No.
You know what, though? This is really what makes Wichita such an amazing place. The creativity and the
Well,
thought.
thank you.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, I've given it some thought. Not a lot. I mean, I came up with this basically in one day because I thought wheels really connect. So, and there's nothing wrong. There's probably the best invention we ever came up with was the wheel. So there's nothing wrong with the wheels. They'll roll over you. There's all these let's roll. I like let's roll. You could have a sunflower in the center of the sunflower. You could have a big drag strip wheel, right? Smoking. Those wheels are smoking.
Kendall, I'm gonna jump to the next call. You're becoming a third wheel, so we're gonna move on. But I just had to.
I love it.
I had to.
Kendall, thanks.
Awesome. Thank you for the call so much. It was well done.
I do want to.
Well done.
I do want to answer. Honestly, I do want to answer that. I believe that they have made their selection. Right now, they're kind of releasing some of the runner-ups. And so I believe it's on the 14th or the 13th of November.
I wanted to say 14th, I believe.
14th of
is
November.
the unveil.
I think that's the unveiling.
It's coming.
So they've made a decision, and to unveil something, they'll have to have hats and uniforms and all that stuff done. So I wish I knew. I really wish I knew, but I don't. That's something kept under lock and key. But thanks for your creativity. I appreciate it. That's awesome.
Awesome call. Yeah, thank you very much. Glad I could throw a pun in there as well. 316-491-5787, that is the number. Richard, you are on the show. You have a question. What is your question?
Yes, I've been kind of concerned with the astonishing rate at which developers have been demanding the city turn over parkland to them. We've already seen how NASCAR Park was demolished to make way for the needs of developers and local businesses or their desires. And the pressures to acquire a Clap golf course and even the entire riverbank. And I'm concerned about whether or not the city council is experiencing undue pressure to forfeit public lands for private gain. And particularly, I'm wondering if, in general, you feel Mr. Councilman, that developers are putting enormous pressure on the city council to do things that are more in lines with meeting the developers' needs than the community's needs.
Oh, okay. Well, I appreciate that question. I don't feel a tremendous amount of pressure, honestly, myself. I can't answer for the other council members, but we do have developers that come to us with ideas. The Nafsker Park issue wasn't developer-led, actually. It was led within the Parks Department to create a safer space in Nafsker Park, but also a more modern space. And the Parks Department did a couple of outreaches into the community. It's interesting, Nafsker Park is now more of a neighborhood park, as we have about 3,000 or more people living downtown. And so when you talk to some of the citizens there around Nafsker Park, they're excited for the updates. A place for them to take their dogs and walk. There's going to be places for people to eat out at Nafsker Park. And the majority of that park is actually all of that park is still park property. Now, we are allowing some of the restaurants and stuff that are developed on the edge of the park to be part of that, to interact with the park, and that just adds to the quality of life. Let me get to Clapp Golf Course, though, because Clapp is an interesting thing. Though we did not continue golf out there, the commitment from the city of Wichita is to invest money into that as parkland. There actually was some inquiries about development there for several years ago. The city's continued to say no to those developers who have inquired about developing Clapp Park. We're putting a master plan together for Clapp Park, which includes more public amenities. One of the ideas was an all abilities playground that we could partner with someone to put in there. It was a huge $1 million playground for all abilities. We've talked about walking trails, and we've talked about gazebos, and we've talked about an amphitheater. We talked about a sledding hill for Clapp Park. And so Clapp Park is going to get a lot of investment infused into it as park property. I will tell you, the city council and the park board, who actually governs our parks, are very sensitive to the selling off of parkland, and that doesn't happen very lightly, and it doesn't happen very often.
Okay. And another follow-up, side note.
Sure.
Has that been decided? I know it's not all been decided. Is that in writing somewhere, the fact that are we guaranteed that this is going to remain kind of some parkland type setting?
Oh, Clapp Golf Course?
Correct.
Yeah. So Clapp Golf Course, I put together a committee of citizens to kind of go and get public feedback about what they wanted to see in Clapp Golf Course. We spent some money to do that with a consultant that helped facilitate that for the community. We received over 50 ideas of what people wanted in the community. We would not have done that portion if we had plans to sell it off.
Okay.
We want to make a park master plan for Clapp Golf Course. It's in the budget for the 2020 budget, and it's moving forward as a park.
Very good. 316-491-5787. We've had some great questions and great puns tonight. Michael, you're on the show. You have a question. What is your question, Michael?
How come the Orpheum Theater hasn't been fixed up to the premier theater that it was when it was first built?
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen the rest of these theaters around Kansas, but they are just beautiful. They fixed them up. The town pitched in. These rich people in town, how come they haven't stepped forward and fixed this up?
Well, it's an interesting question. Thank you. I do know that some of the smaller theaters around the state, I know in Peabody, I'll give you the example. There's a group getting together to try and save that, to revamp it and make it something new and better for the community. In Emporia, they've done the same thing. How about the Orpheum?
Yeah, the Orpheum Theater is an amazing jewel, and there is an effort definitely by the board. They're continuing to raise money, and they're continuing to put money into it. It is a nonprofit board, and it is one of those things that I support. I love the Orpheum Theater. I think that we need to make sure that it stays that jewel and stays a part of our community. I think that it has a bright future ahead.
All right, 316-491-5787 is the number. Please call us and ask your questions. For those of you joining us on Facebook, thank you. And another question about the Orpheum, too, is will we see private, I know you've talked very much about private donations, private development. Is there anybody kind of out there right now?
Yeah, I don't know what the current plans are for the Orpheum and the current plans for the board. I think that we're going to just continue to listen, and when we are able to help out as a city, I think we will. I think the plans are very expensive, obviously, to do such a historic renovation, and so it makes it tough. I just want to encourage people to go and give to the Orpheum, give to other causes that are kind of support the city and the arts and the history here. We have several museums as well that really enhance our ability to learn about the history of Wichita. And so I think that if this is something that people care about, I'd encourage them to give and make that sort of thing possible for us.
And if you've never been to the Orpheum, you absolutely have to go.
Sure.
Spectacular venue. It's
gorgeous.
Great piece of history. Still working history. Okay, 316-491-5787. That's the number to call. Ask any question you'd like, within reason.
Yeah, sure.
Any question. We'll just take them. Jesse, you have a question. You're on the show. Welcome. What is your question, Jesse?
My question is, I live in the 900 block on North Ridgewood. Why did the city change the city bus route to run this 900 block? It's a regular route, and there's no riders on it. I've watched it now for the last 3 weeks, and I don't see a soul on the buses coming through this block.
Okay, that's a very specific question. Have they changed? And stay on the line if you can. I have a follow-up for you.
Yeah, so we did a study several years back about where people rode the bus the most, and we did change the routes to reflect that the best way we could. Running a bus operation is pretty expensive, and we need to find a way, in my opinion, to get a dedicated funding source that allows the bus to run. So here's the thing, though. The bus shouldn't just be for those who can't afford to have their own car. It should be for people who come to our city, that go to the convention center, to be able to get around and go to the neat things that we have here in the city of Wichita. But the biggest barrier that I've been told, especially by employment agencies, for people getting jobs is transportation, especially second and third shift jobs. And so I would love to see us be able to expand our bus routes to kind of a second shift and on the weekends.
Well, I just take it over to Edgemore, which is a major thoroughfare.
Well, that would be a great question for me to ask our transit director and see the data involved to make sure that maybe that would be warranted. But we're always looking at how we can improve those routes. And so feel free to call in, and we can get the transit director to give you a good answer for that.
Okay.
Well, I hope so, because if he's saving money, there's no riders on those buses. They come every 30 minutes, every 45 minutes, and they run till about 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening.
That'd be a very good question.
And it comes right in front of my house, and I think I've seen one person in the last 3 weeks on that bus.
Be a good question for Mike Tan.
It would, yeah.
Okay.
It would definitely.
The director.
Feel free to call the council office at 268-4331. And
would you give me a minute to write that down?
Yeah, you bet.
I'll call everyone I know to call.
268-4331 is the council office. You can talk to the ladies up front, and they'll direct you to the right department so you can ask that question.
Okay.
Thank you.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Appreciate it. All right, 316-491-5787. We got time for a couple more callers here. Blanche, you are on the show. What is your question? And welcome.
Hi. Today I was traveling west on 2nd Street towards the post office, and then later entire length of Delano, and I saw between 3:30 and 5 many people already queuing up for the night on sidewalks with their sleeping bags. And I was just amazed at the number I saw. I knew there were homeless people in Wichita, but starting to get ready for the night at 3:30 in the afternoon. I was just wondering if there are shelters available now that it's starting to turn colder. And if those homeless people choose a shelter, would there be some available?
Yeah.
Well, that's a very good question. Thank you.
Good question.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, there are shelters available. As a matter of fact, there are enough beds right now in Wichita that it gets cramped and tight at times when it gets cold, especially. But there are, you can't force people to go to a shelter though. Especially laws and ordinances keep us from moving people on directly. We have to give people a certain amount of time. As long as they're not breaking any laws, we have to give them a certain amount of time to move on. And so we do that. If you see something that concerns you, please call the homeless outreach team. If you call any one of the substations, they can get you that number. I wish I had it memorized, I should. And if you have a concern at all, call the homeless outreach team through the City of Wichita Police Department, and they'll go out and they'll contact those people and find out if they can actually help and get them to a shelter, get them to any type of help that they might need.
All right, thank you. We have time for one more caller. Celeste, you're on the show. Celeste, welcome. What is your question?
My question has to do with redevelopment projects, which I know you've already gotten a question on, but I'd like to do a follow-up. Is that okay?
Yes, sure.
One reason why the gentleman caller was questioning development is, let's use Waterwalk as an example. City council members didn't really understand the terms of the contract when they signed it, so now their hands are tied when they find out there's no revenue coming back to the city from that $50 million investment. In fact, the most current revenue we have is $1 a year with King of Freight, which is ridiculous considering how much that building Gander Mountain costs. How do we prevent that from happening with redevelopment projects in the future?
That's a really great question. As a matter of fact, that was well before any of our current council members were on the city council. And 8 years ago when I was elected with another group of council members, and we really dug in to make sure that sort of thing wouldn't happen anymore. We have added clawbacks to some of the incentives that we give. We really have ratcheted down on cash incentives. A lot of the stuff is pay as you go. So as the developers are investing money and creating the value, then there's some reimbursement. In that case, the money was given up front and the bottom kind of dropped out of the economy, and some other things happened in the background that kind of kept that development from going forward. As far as King of Freight goes, it does seem maybe like we should be getting more for that, but the wonderful thing about that is King of Freight is actually expanding their jobs. That building's going to allow people, for them to employ more people, which means more tax revenue. And so when we do a cost-benefit analysis for that King of Freight project, we saw that we were going to get more back than we are actually putting into that. So that's really actually ending up being a positive thing for the city of Wichita. They were planning on adding hundreds more in jobs. So that's a good thing. But on surface, I can see why it would look like that wouldn't benefit the city if you're just looking at just the $1 a year for that property. But a lot of changes have happened since that Waterwalk deal has made to help protect the citizens' tax dollar and make sure that we are really returning more back than was put in.
All right, we have literally less than a minute.
Yeah.
If there's one thing you'd like to tell people about what's happening with the City Council and moving forward, what is it?
Continue to be engaged in your city. Continue to ask questions. Pay attention to some of the communication things. We're always putting communication out. We're always doing social media and town halls. We're always trying to get feedback. Go to a district advisory board meeting, which is a public meeting once a month that all council members hold. Come ask questions. We do everything we can to get out in the public and be transparent. So please come out and talk to us. Please ask us questions. And go to a neighborhood association meeting. Get involved in your community, even if it's in a small way. We're always putting ourselves out there as council members and making ourselves available, so please take advantage.
Okay, well, thank you. And thank you, Kendall, for so many wheel puns.
Yeah.
I can't even. That was the best call we've had in a while.
That was a great call, actually. I got a lot of chuckles out of that.
Thanks for calling, Kendall. And thank you for calling. Call the Mayor of Wichita. Don't forget, we're on again last Thursday of the month. So,
yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
All
I
right.
appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Been fun. We'll see you.